We live in a meritocracy. You make good choices, you will be rewarded for those choices, irrelevant of your skin color. So when you say white privilege exists, good choice privilege exists.
Yeah, but I think white people reap a lot of benefits.
Name one benefit that white people that they benefit from this society, despite Asian. What? What about?
Oh my gosh, it's the same. I swear, it's the same thing every video.
An American privilege?
Hey, wealth doesn't mean power and privilege.
Do you believe in Asian American privilege?
I believe that there are a few people of certain races who have gotten very, very wealthy based on trade, based on the economic system that we have. I also believe that as a white man, I historically have an advantage over people who are of a color that is not my skin color.
Hey, I'm gonna be honest, man. I'm gonna be honest. I kind of feel bad for him. I feel bad, and I'm saying that because if you live your whole life from the perspective that you've done someone wrong, that you're automatically not worthy of the successes that you've achieved, then that's a pitiful life. Me personally, I work for everything I have. I know my worth. I know my value in society, and I'm not gonna let my skin color or my gender or anything that I can't change how I move in society. But one thing I've noticed with him and people who have this thought process, that they automatically think that they're wronging me or people who look like me just by them living their life. And I'm sorry that you feel that way. I'm sorry that life has taught you this. But I promise you, I promise, your life, your privilege, it doesn't affect me, bro. I promise you. But anyways, let's go.
This is evident from the slave trade, all the way up to Reconstruction,
The slave trade?
and all the way up to Jim Crow laws. I assume, based on your facial expression, that you have a report. I'm going to go ahead and let you make that.
So did we treat Asian Americans well in the 1940s and 50s?
We sure didn't.
So then how did they overcome that?
They overcame that through
Were they privileged?
having to work harder than white people.
Oh, so they worked harder and they were rewarded for it 60 years later.
How about people that work hard for like 350 years and didn't get any reward?
Yeah.
Like who?
Slaves.
Yeah, slaves.
Why do people keep referring to slavery when they talk about black people? Why? I promise other generations of people existed who are African American. We didn't stop existing. Our advancements didn't stop going forward at slavery. And the reason that I have a problem with that is because that diminishes everything that my generation does or older generations do, just because I'm not going to say don't acknowledge, because that's not the right word. We don't let it hinder our lives. But what he's doing, and I don't understand how no one sees this as a problem. What he's doing is saying, well, you're disadvantaged because of slavery. So do you want me to live my entire life just thinking I'm disadvantaged? Do you want me to just live my entire life thinking that I don't deserve that I inherently am worth less than other people? I'm not going to do it. I'm never going to do it. So why are you pushing this agenda? Why is it a room full of young liberal white students pushing an agenda that black people are inherently less valuable than they are? I don't understand. I don't even see.
What do you mean? Do you know anyone that's ever owned a slave?
Do I know anyone that's ever owned a slave?
Yes.
What does that have to do with that?
Has a lot to do with it.
What does that have to do with
Because if you make three big choices in America, you're guaranteed not to live in poverty. You know what those three choices are? Get married before you have kids, get a job, and graduate high school. You know what community does that at the highest rate? Asian Americans. That's why they're successful. We live in a meritocracy. You make good choices, you will be rewarded for those choices. Irrelevant of your skin color. So when you say white privilege exists, good choice privilege exists.
Yeah, but I think white people reap a lot of benefits.
Name one benefit that white people, but that they benefit from this society, despite Asian. What?
Police treatment.
What about?
Oh my gosh!
That,
It's the same. I swear, it's the same thing every video. It's the same thing every video. Every time and it frustrates me because it diminishes our culture. It diminishes. Every time I watch these videos, man. There are two things every single young liberal student brings up. I don't know if they're liberal. I'm not gonna say that. Every young student who disagrees with him brings up. They bring up slavery and police treatment every single time. I have a question. How are police gonna treat me bad if I don't commit any crimes? Like I'm saying on a day-to-day basis for the majority of African Americans. For one, you're not even going to encounter that many police officers. That's just the average person. That's the average person. In police, the only time you would actively encounter police is if you call them for help. But I'm saying in the day-to-day life, you don't encounter police. That doesn't affect your day-to-day life. So don't try to be dense in the comments. You know what I'm saying. But if you are encountering police on a regular basis, the only way that can happen is if you are regularly doing things that draw police to you. If you are not doing that, then you probably won't even encounter police unless you need help. Obviously, there are times where there are circumstances where, hey, you know what I'm talking about. There are circumstances where there are bad apples in the bunch. That's in every profession, that's in every circumstance of life. But on the majority of the time, you're not even going to encounter a police officer unless you're doing something illegal or you're on the brink of it. And slavery, they keep bringing up slavery. I'm not going to sit here and say it doesn't affect because it was that long ago, but my thing is, how does that affect me right now? How does that affect the bills that I need to pay today? How does it affect me going to college? How does it affect me getting a job? How does it affect me starting a family and getting married? How? It doesn't. That's what I'm saying. But every time I hear these conversations, they bring up police and slavery as if those are just holding me down.
White people are more likely to be shot by a police officer than a black person's likely to be shot by a police officer. From the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Department of Justice independent study of 300 independent police forces across the country. Facts must bother leftists because they always walk away as soon as you recite
You can make a shit ton of leftists here who are still standing here.
Well, I've already made a couple leave, and I'm happy to keep going.
Oh, you made a couple.
Well, that's great.
No, but let's get back. Can you,
that's quantifiable evidence.
If white privilege exists, why are Asian Americans and Indian Americans wealthier, have higher incomes, live in better areas on aggregate than white Americans do?
Because if you want to support this argument, if you really want to push this argument, they're ignored. They're ignored because he called them leftists, so I'm going to refer to them as leftists in this. When the leftists, and I'm referring to them as leftists because he called them leftists. I don't know if they're actually that. But when these students or leftists talk about privilege and white privilege specifically, they ignore every other race that would possibly prove their argument wrong. When you talk about Indian Americans or Indian citizens or Asian citizens or Latino citizens or any citizen that is not African American, they're ignored. I'd go as far to say, even if you talk about Nigerian Americans or Ghanaian Americans, they're also ignored. Because they only want to talk about something that helps their argument. It doesn't make any sense to me. Because you could easily debunk this by saying, well, look at the other races who do these things. Or other nationalities who do these things. And to me, it's like, why is this even an argument?
I don't know. Maybe because white privilege doesn't exist.
Maybe. Or maybe
maybe it doesn't. Okay. Maybe skin color has nothing to do with it, but choices have everything to do with it.
I disagree with that.
Then show me some evidence, because I just showed you some evidence that it doesn't exist.
What you take as evidence? What counts for you?
Something that I just said. For example, that the wealthiest people in America, numbers would be nice, historical data, logic.
Testimony.
No, testimony means
Testimony
nothing.
count?
I don't care about anyone's version of truth. I care about evidence. I don't care about feelings. I care about facts.
Aren't most of these studies partially based on testimony, though?
No, when you say that Asian Americans are the richest people in America, that's math. That's looking at people's income. That's not testimony.
Okay.
Testimony would be a singular person saying, I've had a tough time. That would be testimony, which that might be true, but that doesn't make it true in the aggregate.
Black people?
I'm sorry?
Is there discrimination?
There's discrimination against all sorts of people.
Yeah, is it worse against black people or is it equal?
Depends what part of the country, it depends what situation. And when that
So
exists,
if you put it
there's
all
laws to
together,
put
which
people in
one-
prison.
If you put them all together, which race faces discrimination?
I would say probably Hispanic Americans in certain parts of the country, even more so. But I have no data to support that. You asked me some anecdotal question. I haven't done that much thinking about it. But I'll say this. In America, if you make a sequence of good choices irrelevant of skin color, you will be rewarded for those choices. We're one of the only countries in the world where that is.
I will say regarding his question, he says there's discrimination towards black people. Yes, there is discrimination towards black people. There's discrimination towards any race. It depends where you are and what you do. It depends, honestly, because one thing about humans in general is that humans naturally form biases. And they form biases based off of what they see in the media or what they consume in reality. Maybe it's books, maybe it's their own personal circumstances. That's how God made us. He made us form biases. He made us form opinions about people. We do it about people. We do it to people that we love. We do it to people that we don't like. We just form thoughts about them. It is what it is. So when you talk about discrimination, it exists because of their own biases towards other humans. It's just what it is.
As possible, where you can have intergenerational ascension, where your kids can be better than how you are today.
It's like kind of a fallacy.
It's not a fallacy. That's why Asian Americans
apply to
entered.
everybody.
That's why Asian Americans entered in the 1940s as the poorest group in America, and they're now the richest group. The Constitution was not written in Korean, yet they have benefited the most from what people call a white predominant society. Indian Americans, for example, from India, are the second richest per race.
Was the
category in
Constitution
America.
written in Hindi?
No, that's exactly the point.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Continue.
The point is that people say that our society is rigged for white individuals and white men. The evidence does not suggest that. There's twice as many white people living in poverty today than black people. Now, the rate for poverty in the black community is much higher, but the aggregate number is something that should not be ignored. So the misconception.
Yeah, I was about to say that the percentage is higher, but we are still humans. We are not percentages. I know people like to say, well, but you think the person living in poverty right now cares about a percentage? They are living in poverty. So yeah.
Conception that our country is rigged just for people based on a certain skin color has zero evidence. Yet that is the predominant thing that is being taught in our
When
universities.
did it stop?
What do you mean?
When did it not be rigged anymore? Because it clearly used to be rigged. You're saying it isn't rigged now.
That's a fair point. I'd say throughout the 60s and 70s and 80s, as America got significantly less racist, as we passed the Civil Rights Act, things got more equitable in the sense where better decisions got rewarded more.
And you don't think that there could be a lag effect of 350 years of slavery and 100 years of Jim Crow?
I think those inequities have been more balanced out, more so than it's even worth considering that 350 years of inequity. For example, Asian Americans built the railroad system in America in the late 1800s, early 1900s in America. We put Japanese Americans in internment camps in the 1940s. Jewish Americans had an extermination order against them in Europe in the 1940s. The point being is that,
Taking history class.
right, so almost every racial ethnic group has had some.
Forgive me for stopping this, but y'all, I really don't understand this. You say that we are discriminated against in society. You say that we don't have the privilege that you have. So if this is what you feel, and this is a genuine question, please answer. If this is how you feel, why don't you ever offer solutions? Why have I watched 1 million of these videos and I have not heard one solution that I can do? And the reason why this is a problem is because imagine you remember when you were a kid, or let's say you're watching this and you have any children. I'm saying young children, below the age of 10. When your child wants something, or when your child needs something, you don't expect your child to do it themselves. You expect to do it, or you expect an adult that you trust to do it. When they're in school, you don't expect your child to teach themselves. And the reason I brought this up is because that's kind of how these students, or this liberal mindset, views the African American community. You're not going to try to give us advice or give advice on what we can do to help ourselves. You're kind of looking at it from the perspective of a kid, that we can't help ourselves, that we don't have the mental capacity to do what is best for our culture. And I don't agree with that. Even if you do agree that your race naturally has privilege, I don't agree with that. But if you agree with that, okay. But if you think that, what are things that we can do, my community can do, to still live a good life?
Form of suffering. So to point to something that happened a very, very long time ago and to attribute the inequity today to
It
that.
wasn't that long ago, though.
When was slavery abolished?
Slavery was abolished in 1808. The international slave trade was gotten rid of. But then we actually resorted to chattel slavery, which is where we bred them like cattle.
You're not going to hear me defend slavery for a
Okay,
second. No, I mean,
that's
obviously,
good because I
one of the
would
great
think it would be an
sins of the
asshole.
American. It's one of the great sins of the American story. But you know what's also admirable about it? How we got rid of slavery.
Something
Because
admirable about slavery?
no, what's admirable about our history, not about slavery.
Okay, thank you.
But we still
Because-
haven't dealt with like the repercussions.
What repercussions would that
The lack of the ability for certain people to accumulate wealth.
be? Such as who?
This is killing me. Do y'all think that I can't accumulate wealth? Do the people watching this look at me and think because I'm black, I can't accumulate wealth? In my life, I've never thought that. And the only time that I've ever even heard anything similar to that was from these young liberal students. I've never in my life heard that from anyone but liberal people. Ever. I've never even thought that of myself. The only time the thought has ever entered my mind is not from Charlie Kirk. It's not from any conservative or Republican person. It's not from any book I've read or history book. It's not from my personal experiences. It's from them. So if you think that, let me know why you think that.
I don't know, like I was down in New Orleans, right? And I see all these mansions. And it's like those people, that old mansions, they made their money, they're probably slave owners. Then you go into a black neighborhood and it's slave.
But they might have been slave owners in 1865
But they
when the
have that
American.
accumulated wealth that can compound versus people that don't have
How much
that.
wealth do you
Okay, so you're making a fair point that there might be intergenerational inequity. How do you go about that? Well, some people on the left would say you tax it, you take away from what people used to have. I totally and completely disagree with that.
What do you think? Then what is your case?
Because
how
I
do
don't-
you reparations then?
There's no reparations. I believe in opportunity. Instead of trying to fix the past, which will never happen, which is a horrible idea, you create a better future.
It'll never happen with that.
No, because you know why? Any country that's ever tried reparations has failed miserably. South Africa, for example. They've tried reparations the last 30 years. They're more racially divided on the brink of civil war than they ever have been.
Do you think we're on the brink of civil war?
I hope not.
You think so?
No, I said I hope not.
But I asked if you think so.
No, I don't think we are. But it's people on the left that want us to be more divided than not.
No, I think it's like you.
No,
You're
because-
here trying to divide people.
Hold on a second. Do you support black-only dormitories?
Sure.
You do. Okay. That's resegregation. You realize that.
No, I think it.
He just said he supports segregation. Like, you can't make this up. I'm not sitting here making up anything he said. I'm watching the same video you guys are watching. He literally just said he supports segregation. And these are the people who's supposed to be helping me. I'd have to be insane to think this. You'd have to literally be insane to think this. This is not okay. This is wrong. This is flat out wrong. I don't care if you're a liberal, Democrat, Republican, conservative. I don't care what side you support. This is wrong. This line of thinking is wrong. Point blank, period. And I try to leave out the word liberal specifically for these students because I don't know what they support. But it doesn't matter what you support. If you think like this, you are wrong, and you need some help.
Black people want to do that. We should allow them to because they have to face.
Well, then would you support white-only dormitories?
No.
Why?
Because pretty much the school is white only. Pretty much every dormitory is white only.
I don't know the demographic makeup of Oregon, but looking around, I'd say it's a more diverse campus than just being a white-only campus.
If black people want, yeah.
So you believe in black-only graduation ceremonies at Harvard?
If they want that,
What?
why do I care? Why does it bug me?
Well, it should bug you that we're resegregating parts of the population.
There's a difference.
That
It's
people
totally
march in this.
different.
What's the
One thing
difference?
if white people say that black people have to be separate.
What's the difference of skin color? What's the difference between a white person and a black
I was
person?
trying to tell you.
Tell me what's the difference between a white person and a black person.
No, I'm not.
There's no difference. They're both
No,
human beings. There's
they're,
only
like,
one race, the
treated
human
differently.
race.
Okay, this student, watching this stuff is kind of discouraging because in my life, I always thought that, I had an equal opportunity. I always thought that I can achieve all things through Christ that strengthens me. That's what I think in my life. But every time I hear people like him speak, I get reminded that racism still exists. That in your mind, you don't view me the same way that you view yourself. You don't view me with the same level of intellect and worthiness that you view yourself. You automatically place me lower than you. And I know someone's going to say, well, that's not what he's saying. That's not what he's saying. If you're allowed to ride the big boy bike, but when you look at the black community, we have to have training wheels, what does that inherently suggest? That automatically tells me that you think that we can't handle what you're doing. We can't possibly have the same opportunity as you. We can't possibly go as far as you. But anyways, if you have any suggestions, comment them down below. I'm not a Jojo.